There we go. So it was a bit shorter this week with the intro. Great stuff. And as always, welcome to the Northeast Football Podcast. There is three's a crowd usually, but there's only two's a crowd today.
It's two's company.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Rye otherwise engaged today, but he will be back, he says, next week. So hope you're well, Rye, you and the family. As always, just over an hour to talk about Newcastle United, Sunderland, and a bit of Middlesbrough as well. And Newcastle playing today. So if you forgive us, Ted, just for starting with the team news.
Go for it, mate. Go for it.
There are Newcastle United fans who'll be aware, I'm sure, that there has been two changes to our winning lineup last week. Lewis Hall has been dropped, and he's replaced him with Lloyd Kelly, which I don't think is any great surprise. Lloyd Kelly did play well last week, and of course, sentimental return to Bournemouth for Lloyd Kelly this week as well. And Fabian Schär, of course, sent off last week, suspended for 3 games, and he has been replaced as expected by Emil Kraft. So Newcastle lineup is Pope in goal, Joe Linton, Gordon, Isak, Kraft, Livramento, Murphy, Kelly, Byrne, Longstaff, and Captain Bruno. On the bench, another strange choice, I think, for some. John Ruddy is the keeper named on the bench. No Martin Dubravka. No news on why that is, but we do have 5 keepers in our books. One will be going out on loan, one would imagine, or maybe on a permanent deal. So is it Dubravka? Is that the end of Dubravka at Newcastle? Lots of question marks over that. Kieran Trippier did travel and is on the bench today. Obviously, a big news story surrounding an unnamed Premier League player in the newspapers. I think most of us who follow Newcastle United will realise that potentially could be our right back. But he is on the bench today. Barnes, Target, Asula, Hall, Almiron, Willock, and Alex Murphy make up the rest of the people on the bench. So great game ahead, I'm sure. We lost 2-0 down there last season, and I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll get something today, Ted. I do think that the fact that they've lost the main talisman up front, who scored 2 goals against us last season in the corresponding fixture, and they won 2-0, I am quietly confident we'll come back with something. Am I confident we're going to get a win? No, I think it'll be a 2-2 draw today. I do think there'll be goals. I'm still not convinced that we've got our back four sorted out, but I hope I'm proved wrong. I hope we've got enough in the bank today to get a result. It would be great to get off to a great start. Two wins out of 2 would be good for me. And especially with some of our rivals playing each other yesterday and a few of those other teams dropping points, it's a chance to edge ahead of the likes of Manchester United, for example, edge ahead of Aston Villa. Teams who are going to be, I would imagine, in and around Newcastle this season. But yeah, interesting to hear the team anyway, and Lloyd Kelly making a sentimental return in today, Ted.
No surprise that. I think you called that last week, Steve, to be honest, about Lewis Hall. Probably not the greatest performance. For all, you got the win against Southampton. Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I think Lewis Hall didn't exactly ingratiate themselves. You could see that from the comments from a lot of the Newcastle fans as well, that not 100% happy with his output there in that first game. It's still early doors, Steve. There's some surprising results coming up. I'll take the Arsenal versus Aston Villa game yesterday. Villa, I thought, outplayed them for vast quantities of that game. It's only in the sort of last quarter of the game where Arsenal really clicked in. So it's everyone's trying to still find their place. I don't think you'll see a 2-0 victory for Bournemouth like what you did last season. That's for sure. Like you say, lost Solanke as well, and so have Spurs now, funnily enough, with an ankle injury. It's the most Spurs thing ever, isn't it?
It is.
The wait for a striker, and then all of a sudden they sign one and he goes off on the sick. Yeah, it's like the days of Darren Anderton all over again. So yeah, I honestly think you'd be too strong for them today. I've been impressed with what I've seen from Newcastle so far, albeit only in one game. To weather that storm with 10 men for as long as you did, that shows that there's not just some sort of free flowing scoring. You can also sneak wins, and that's important, Steve. If you can get off to a start to a season, and if you can graft and grind those results out, they're as good as 4-0s and 5-0s all day long. But when, man sent off after a few minutes in the first half, and you play that out, and that creates a bit of resolve amongst the team. You've still got the likes of Tonali to come back in, which I think that's T-3 days until he's available for selection again. So, I think it could be a very positive start to the season. Go and get them 3 points down at Bournemouth today, and I think they're capable. I think you'll sneak it. I really do, and I can't wait to see the game, to be honest, because it should be a decent one. It always is. I fancy you to sneak the win, absolutely. It's I suppose a testament to those Northeast teams who can grind the result out. I'm not saying anything more though.
Hold on. This is an alert. Mind the gap. Mind the gap.
I was going to start the show with cotton wool up my nose because I had a nosebleed,
I've got to be honest. I just took one look at the league table in the Championship, and it was quite a surprising look there, because especially after the week you've had, Jack Clark. Let's start with him before you look back at yesterday's result. Jack Clark, certainly one of your star players. Gone to Ipswich. Premier League club now, in
this season.
In name, yeah. It's got all the feels, and from what I've heard from people who I know in the in the media who cover Sunderland, it sounds like it's been financial. I think Clark probably would have stayed had Sunderland maybe been able to match the kind of money that Ipswich can throw around this season.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a difference between what was Jack Clark on, rumored to be on about 15. And he was offered more to stay. I think he was offered a contract extension. But when Ipswich is sort of waving in the region of 40 grand a week, you can't turn that down. And, Ian Hart's not dumb. He's not the most popular man on Weir's side right now. He's the agent Ian Hart, but he's not daft, because at the end of the day, he might go and Ipswich, look the favourites to go down, as all promoted teams are when they go up to the Premier League. There's no danger of that. For me, it's about Jack Clark getting the opportunity to go and do his thing in the Premier League for a season, and then he might just catch the eye of somebody further up, like a Wolves or somebody like that, who's a bit more mid-table, heading towards the top half, somebody who's more established. So it's a chance for him to put himself in the biggest Steve Banted off the buttons. I love that. It's an opportunity for Jack Clark to really, really put himself in the shop window for a bigger move than that. And that's obviously, that would do Sunderland a world of favours, because obviously we've worked a sell-on clause into his contract as well. For me, Stephen, I'm very honest about it. I said it in the first two shows even, that Jack Clark wasn't the same player since that injury that he picked up in the back half of last season against Birmingham City. There was just something where he was a little bit off the pace. All right, he scored in the first game of the season this time around, but to be honest, I think there was almost too much pressure on him. He was the talisman. He did score 15 goals last season, and I think there's that expectation among the fans of waiting for him to do something. And that's not always the case. There's 11 players on the pitch, to use a well-worn expression. And you could almost see yesterday, and we'll come on to the match, obviously, in a wee while, but you could see yesterday there was almost pressure off the team. It was a chance, especially Romain Mundle, to go out there and actually stake a claim and go, we're not all about Jack Clark. And I think that was the perfect answer yesterday. Good luck to the lad. No hard feelings about it whatsoever. Somebody who you bring in for 750,000, who you get 15 to 20 million for, represents good business to me. And if that's invested wisely, not wildly, don't do that. Don't do a Borough. So yeah, listen, that could work to our favour. You brought Wilson Isidore in, who, by all accounts, is a very, very useful prospect. A possibility of another 2 strikers to actually come in before the close of the window at the end of next week as well. Brilliant time to be a Sunderland fan. What more can you say,
It is. I mean, that win yesterday was probably was out the blue for me. I mean, I thought it would be tight. I did think Burnley would edge it, and I had every right to say that. I think with the way Burnley started, especially with their their reputation in going up and down as well in recent seasons. But you can't take anything away from Sunderland's start of the season, mate. It's 9 points out of 9, 3 wins out of 3, despite losing Jack Clark. And it seems to be a little bit of a feel-good factor around Sunderland. And that's what happens sometimes. Sometimes it's not about having the biggest squad, having the most money. Sometimes it's about getting that kind of, just getting that run going. Just getting that run going. And confidence plays a huge factor in any level of football.
Yeah, that's it. It's winning is a good habit to get into, Steve. It's just as losing is a bad one. Winning is a great habit. And I read up on this. It's the best start to a season we've ever had in terms of the first 3 games. The only time we've won our first 3 games in history was something like back in 1925-26 season. But the fact that we've actually gone into the first 3 games and not conceded a single goal as well, the defences look fantastic. Luke O'Nien, and my thoughts on Luke, a fantastic ambassador for the club. But I never ever saw him as a centre-back. Him and Alessi, the partnership there. And we've still got Dan Ballard to come back into that full-time. He came on as a substitute yesterday, but it's fantastic to see that. And like you say, it's the confidence. You've got young Chrissy Rigg playing like he's 10 years older than what he is. Some of his touches are fantastic. Job looks like a different kid this season. He's grown in confidence. He's grown in stature as well. There was that kind of feeling among the fans that he is a very young lad, so he needed to fill out a little bit. He looks even more physically imposing now. And this is a midfield that's without Ekwa as well, who's a bit of a Rolls Royce and towards the first part of last season. So there's a lot to be positive about right now. Patrick Roberts, for me, yesterday, I actually saw a different side to him. It was a Patrick Roberts that was tracking back, that was putting his foot in for tackles. It looked like he had a bit more burst of pace about him. It was just fantastic to watch. The only disappointment for me yesterday was Dan Neil. It was 2 silly yellow cards. The first yellow card was actually for kicking the ball away. I know Dia Frankie, who does the commentary on the Sunderland Live, I was going to say podcast there, broadcasts, said it was for dissent. It wasn't. It was for kicking the ball away. The referee had already booked a Burnley player for doing the same thing, so it's coming. So it's a silly one to give away. Then 5 minutes towards the end, goes and tackles a Burnley player in their half, and then it's just a simple yellow card. Both completely warranted. It was a bit silly, and for a lad who's just made that move into captain as well, it was just a little bit disappointing. But the rest of it, Mundle took his goal extremely well. Mayenda running the line well. Everybody just put in an absolute tip-top performance. I was very, very happy with it. And like you say, 3 games in, you're starting to look at it going, right, we're not going to win every game, but that's the kind of... you can only beat what's there in front of you. You were beating two of the teams who we really expect to be in and around the top 6 by the end of the season. Cracking start, really, really happy, and a good coach by the looks of things.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's all about, like, as you say, just getting on that kind of run. You've got to now beat the teams below you. You've got to beat those teams, the teams where you're expecting to get 3 points. You've got to beat them. And interesting start of the season. Anything can change. Like I said about Leeds United, get off to a horrendous start. Wouldn't surprise me to see Leeds there or thereabouts at the end of the season. They managed to pick up a result this weekend. John, thanks for that, mate. Pick that up from Dominic Skirt, Newcastle World. Martin Dubravka hasn't travelled with Newcastle today due to a concussion picked up in training. The club are following the appropriate protocol. I think it's interesting to find that our new keeper from Forest, though, doesn't make it onto the bench. Instead, they picked John Ruddy to be number 3, which means that he's clearly, going to go out on loan. I think maybe now that other keeper that we've signed.
Good deputy, Forest. John Ruddy, very good deputy, capable guy.
Yeah, 100% he is. Yeah. Let's look at Borough then. No ride today, but Middlesbrough did have a home game yesterday against Portsmouth. Full-time score 2-2 in that game. Got off to a poor start, Borough. Christian said he got the goal in the opening 2 minutes, and it shocked the Borough faithful. But Matty Clark managed to pull the team's level. And it just seemed to be one of those days for Borough, because Sadie then scored another goal in the 25th minute to give Portsmouth a 2-1 lead at half-time. It was into the second half, and in injury time in the second half. Middlesbrough deserved point, perhaps. I'm not sure. Obviously, difficult to say when you're not at the game, but Tommy Conway slotting away a 90th minute penalty to give Middlesbrough and Portsmouth a share of the spoils at the Riverside. But no win again, and it's another unconvincing performance, Ted, from Michael Carrick's boys, who started the season probably as favourites and find themselves at this moment in time in 9th place.
Yeah, rightly so. Definitely among the favourites to go up, especially with that end of the season that they had. They've invested pretty well, I think, in terms of Tommy Conway, a great addition to the squad. That, and a few Sunderland fans having a bit of a moan that for that kind of money, it's a proven striker, and I think he'll complement Latte Lath very, very well. But like you say, it's another one of these like stuttering starts to the season, and Borough did this last time around as well. And I'd be interested actually here from the Middlesbrough fans just to see what they think. Is it going to be one of these where you almost go on that fantastic run just a little bit too late again? The same happened last season, where I think after Christmas you just went on an insane run. They were absolutely unstoppable. But the start of the season, and bringing it back around to the Sunderland thing again, which I'm sure they're going to thank me for, get off to a good start. And honestly, the confidence that gives you, Middlesbrough doing exactly the same again, though, where you just think, is it a settled side? Is there something? Is there just a problem with gelling? It'll be interesting to see what they do in the last week of the transfer window. Just is this Michael Carrick kind of going through the motions of seeing what he's short of? Is he still, has he got a settled 11 yet? Again, Middlesbrough fans will be able to tell us more about that. I don't expect this to last for Middlesbrough. I think they will turn it around again. They'll start and win games. It's just, there is going to be that element of concern for them in terms of, right, when is this going to click into place? Because they are a good side. There's Mickey taking a side and all that sort of thing, and mind the gaps and all that sort of nonsense. But they are a very, very good side, and I don't expect them to kind of be languishing around 9th, 10th, and all that sort of nonsense for too long. It's just when. It's a matter of when, because, like you say, you need to get into that habit of winning, and it's 3 games where first game of the season it was pretty much a formality, but since then the Derby County game, I don't know. There's just something not clicking. I don't know whether it's maybe a bit of experience required through the spine of the team or what. But they're not firing on all cylinders yet. And they will, but like I say, it's up to Michael Carrick now. He's got a week of the transfer window left to actually see, right, what's missing here and how do we put it right.
Just looking at the top of the Championship, Watford have got up to a flyer as well. Ted, was that a team that you fancied for making something of this season?
Not at all. I was quite surprised myself, Steve, to be honest, because last season they were awful. They were tipped to be in and around there. I think they still probably had some parachute payments from last season, from when they got relegated from the Premier League. I'm pretty convinced of that. That potential that squad had just seems to have gone to bits, to be honest. They've sold some useful players. Listen, fair play to them. That's a cracking start. It's the only other team that's got a 100% record so far this season. They're a decent sized club, but then you could argue that for pretty much 3/4 of the Championship, that they've all probably got their own stake in being promoted back to the Premier League. Watford are no pushover. They've always been a decent Championship side, a bit of a yo-yo club. I guess we can put our hands up on that one as well. But yeah, fantastic start from them. We all thought Burnley were going to blow everybody away. They still might, Steve. Look, that could be a blip for them. The thing that sort of shocked me yesterday was Burnley just didn't get started at all. You're talking about 14 shots for Sunderland, 4 for Burnley. That was an absolute big shock, that one. Somebody like a Watford, they're always going to cause an upset. There's always one team in the Championship that kind of makes that run. And, Ipswich did it last season. And there's always one that you don't fancy all the way along. And if Watford can keep that up, then, who knows? They could be up there as well.
Yeah. Premiership, no surprise to see the early runners and riders are the usual suspects. And Man City and Arsenal. Seems to be a lot of people this season tipping Arsenal to be the team to win the Premier League. Are you in the same kind of camp as
100%?
Those people?
100%. Yeah, I do. I like the way they look this time around, and the same for last season as well. I thought they were unlucky, to be fair. I think defensively they've got a bit of bite about them again now. As a former Sunday League defender myself, I absolutely love to watch Saliba. I think he's a fantastic centre back. His pace, and he made some just phenomenal challenges yesterday. And right the way through the team, they've just got a bit of bite about them again. I think towards the end of Arsene Wenger's reign, they played some fantastic football, but they were always trying to walk it into the net, and it was all a bit pretty. And if they come across like a Bolton Wanderers or somebody like that, then they used to complain, they used to cry that it was all tough challenges and things like that. Now there's just a little bit more physicality about their game, and they look good. That's not to say that Man City don't, because I mean they didn't even get out of third gear yesterday, and they absolutely whipped Ipswich. I don't know whether Jack Clark's been signed to go in goal, but certainly the keeper who they have signed, he's not the answer after yesterday's mistakes. Like, it was absolutely horrendous. I don't know whether you saw the highlights, Steve, but he's had an absolute western on 2 of the goals. Like, it's horrific. But City always look good, don't they? Haaland looks like he's got his arrogance about him again with his scoring ability. Phenomenal finisher, and it looks like a 2-horse race. To be honest, at this point, it looks like a 2-horse race for the title already. That's between City and Arsenal. I just fancy Arsenal this season for some reason.
And the return of Gundogan as well. I mean, you couldn't have scripted that, could you? Man City, and I mean, the beauty of that is, I mean, lots of people say when you go to Man City, you've got to get into the routine, that you've got to get into that kind of way of Pep's playing. No problems for Gundogan. It's only 5 minutes since he left.
Yeah. It's almost like he's done a season-long loan at Barcelona, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
What a fantastic player to bring back to your club, though, Steve. A guy who's won everything, absolutely won everything. He's another one of those players as well that I think is a bit old school. You always see him talked about on the back pages rather than the front pages. He's got quality about him. He can pick a pass. He's a goal-scoring midfielder. For me, he is one of the great Premier League players. I think we can already say that. I think he's got bags and bags of talent about him. Another one of these that probably you notice more when he's not playing. He's one of those where, I think Man City side, the midfield actually missed him last season. There was that kind of, somebody to put the foot on the ball and actually dictate the play. Going back to our era, I think, like sort of somebody like who Arsenal had in David Rocastle, who could put their foot on the ball and almost dictate the pace of the play. And Gundogan brings that. I think he's a terrific signing for them. But I mean, it's just strength and depth that's insane there at the moment. Managed to score 4 goals yesterday without Phil Foden anywhere near the squad as well. So it's they're not looking too shabby, are they?
No, definitely not. You're talking about Ipswich, and you're right. I mean, the last few seasons, especially teams coming up from the Championship, have inevitably gone straight back down. Newcastle played Southampton last week. I was impressed with Southampton, but the thing I said last week, and what I'll continue to say after yesterday's performance, is they lack a goal scorer of Premier League class. And I think Southampton had again another narrow 1-0 defeat yesterday. The manager was waxing lyrical about the positives as he's going to, but I think they had 5 shots on target yesterday. They had 23 shots against them. Again, doesn't bode well for Southampton. But Leicester have a certain Jamie Vardy, and he's still having a party in the Premier League at the age of 37.
We talked about this last season And it was just
Yeah.
as when Leicester got promoted and said, can Vardy still do it? Now, I'm going to smugly sit here and go, yes. And it's the same thing. We're talking about habits, and he is a habitual goal scorer. And it just doesn't surprise me at all, Steve. It's all right. He might not have the same pace as what he did 5 or 6 years ago, but it's about positional intelligence as well, being a forward. Teddy Sheringham was never blessed with the most pace in the world, but he knew where to be. Ruud van Nistelrooy, you could probably argue the same as well. It was not what you would call a fast-paced forward, just knew where to be at the time. And he's popped up with another goal there against Southampton, against Tottenham rather, and the banter that he had with the Spurs fans as well. Pointing to the Premier League badge and saying one trophy, and they've got none. I just thought that was absolutely brilliant. Like he masters the old S-housery rather well, I've got to say, Jamie Vardy. I love to watch him. He's fair play to the lad, 37-year-old, still banging the goals in like that. Who would rule him against getting into double figures this season? I certainly wouldn't. I think he's got the ability. Like I say, he just knows where the back of the net is and he knows where to be. And long may it continue, because I love watching the guy.
Yeah, Sissoko scored for Watford yesterday. Yes, you're right, Dave. Found his level at long last, Dave, I would say. Got it. I mean, this is the Northeast Football Podcast. It's the only one in the area, and it's it's our job, I guess, to give praise where and give credit where credit's due, and credit to Gateshead. Obviously, our neighbours, they've got off to a great start. They had such a nightmare scenario at the end of last season. Should have been given the opportunity to go for promotion. Due to a bit of bureaucracy behind the scenes, they couldn't. Did manage to win a trophy though, which again deserve massive credit for, especially after going there the season before and losing. But another win yesterday against a team that will be there or thereabouts. 3-1 winners over Yeovil Town. And Gateshead sitting pretty second top again in the league, and getting off to a bit of a flyer. 4 games, 3 wins, 1 draw, no defeats, scoring goals. Lost one of their key players, of course, last week through injury. They've managed to sign up Damani Mella on a short-term deal to replace their missing striker. But goals for Brandon Houndstrup. And an own goal from Jordan Thomas and Luke Hannant with a 91st minute penalty. See Gateshead winning 3-1 against Yeovil. But that's a great solid start for Gateshead, isn't it?
I was impressed with them in pre-season, Steve. We played against them. They beat us in pre-season, and all right, it's half of the first team, half of the under-21s in there. Not making excuses for Sunderland here. Gateshead were well worth it. They play some nice football as well, Steve. You think non-league's going to be, you kind of have that picture in your mind of the old non-league stuff of hoofing it up the middle of the park and, aiming for the big man and all that sort of thing. They're not like that. They actually really do play some nice football. And look, I'd love for them to resolve this situation with the stadium and actually get up there. For me, I would love to see that, the likes of Darlington, the likes of Hartlepool back into the league again, where we want to see them. Not that long ago, you're talking Gateshead as a league side. I'm still of that age group that can remember that, and I would love to see it. There's more than enough room for 2 teams on Tyneside, I think, to be in the league. Absolutely. Good luck with them. I think we'll be keeping a closer eye on some of the non-league stuff as we progress with this podcast over the months, and maybe a little bit of focal point, try and get somebody on. But very, very impressed with Gateshead. Like I said, they haven't taken it badly. They haven't sort of gone a bit of a boo-hoo, poor us kind of approach about last season. They're cracking on and looking really, really good. Like I say, nice that they're playing attractive football as well. Very, very good start. Yeah,
very good start. And I guess the non-leagues had a bit of a renaissance, especially with, when Newcastle and Sunderland, over the years, I mean, pre-takeover for Newcastle especially, a lot of fans decided to walk away. Sunderland fans, went along en masse, I think. I remember going to watch South Shields play. A lot of people started to watch South Shields, but it's good to see the non-league, still getting, that kind of following. I know Dunstan the other day against Wickham. They had 2 games. Wickham away to Wickham against Dunstan in the FA Cup preliminary round. 900 people at Wickham on a Sunday afternoon last Sunday, and then the corresponding return fixture this week, just short of 600 at Dunstan this week for that game. So that's 1,500 people going to watch a local derby, Ted. I mean, that's great.
That's what you need. Grassroots, not grass fruits. Don't eat grass fruits. No, they're not very tasty at all. Grassroots football is massively important, and I think the Northeast is just such a hotbed of it as well. You've got the likes of Blythe Spartans over the years, and Whitby as well, if you kind of want to class them as the Northeast. Whitby Town. We've been blessed with fantastic non-league sides, and I think we've got to go and support them. That in County Durham, you've got Spenny, you've got Bishop Auckland, who've turned out consistent, really, really good non-league sides over the years. And look, they actually turn out a lot of the stars that we go and watch. Looking back through the history, I guess, looks at the likes of Tow Law, where Chrissy Waddle started. Around about the time he was making sausages, I think, at the same time. But these non-league sides, they have got the stars that you're going to see. Some of the lads who nearly made it into the top echelons of football as well, who maybe just maybe through the luck of injuries and things like that, just didn't quite make it. But you can actually go and watch some fantastic standards of football in local non-league stuff, and it's something we've got to support. And I think we've got to use our platform here to kind of give that a little bit of a boost and tell people to get along, and maybe just give it a little bit of a feature as well. Like you say, Steve, those sort of numbers for non-league games, that's fantastic. That you get crowds like that keeps your club going for another 6 months. It's absolutely brilliant. And you can very, very quickly see if a club doesn't get supported locally. We saw the same with Mask Town last season, where they'll almost lost everything if you don't go along and support them. So it's well worth, if you want to take a break from watching Sunderland winning every single game, that gets boring after a while, So go and support your non-league side as well.
Yeah. Transfer window will be closing this week, thank the Lord. As far as the Newcastle United fans concerned, I'm sick of the death of it, to be honest. And judging by Eddie Howe's press conference pre-Bournemouth, I know he's sick of it as well. Jack Clark, as we've already mentioned, moved from Sunderland to Ipswich this week. And Sunderland will have a bit of money to burn. Do you think they'll spend anything, Ted?
It's bizarre. And I saw this. I'm afraid I can't credit the person who wrote it. It's not me making it up, but only Sunderland could have their transfer window affected by Ed Sheeran and Kylian Mbappe. It's just absolutely crazy. It's a typical Sunderland window, really. There is a feeling that Alexandre Mendy from Caen is still very, very much on the radar. He's 30-year-old, 22 goals in 37 matches last season, which is a very, very decent return. Apparently, the player really, really wants to come to Sunderland, but the owners of Caen, which is Kylian Mbappe and his family, they want to try and keep him there and build their squad. So keep a close eye on that one. There's also Simic as well, who's I think a Red Bull Salzburg player at this moment in time. Simic is a striker, a young Croatian lad, very, very highly rated. But it's another one of them, Steve, where he's 20-year-old. Maybe just another one that's for the future, which is a little bit frustrating. But at the same time, if we'll get Mendy through the door, who's I would classify him as an experienced, proper goal scorer as well. So let's wait and see what happens. I think we'll get another 2 in before the close of the window. I think, yes, some of that Jack Clark money has to be spent. In saying that, we've still got players, the likes of Poveda, he was just on the bench yesterday, getting up to match fitness. There's players to come into that squad that we've got that are going to add that little bit of quality. I just think we're light up top at this moment in time. And so if we get Mendy through the door, Simic, be nice to get him. By all means, like I say, very, very highly rated. I think it'll be the top end. I think we'll probably be waiting right until the wire, as it always is. But the difference this time compared to so many transfer windows in the past, I think we will actually come away from this one with a striker. There, I've said it. I think Sunderland fans probably think I've lost the plot, but...
Mark Slavin says, the 900 at Wickham, that explains why I can't park near my house.
Sell your parking space, Mark. Sell your parking space.
This is what they do. This is what they do at Anfield. You go to Anfield and people, they've got their drives open, 20, 25 quid to park.
Oh, you never see your car again, though. Sorry if there's any Liverpool. I'm not sorry, actually. I'm not sorry.
Just looking at Newcastle's transfer window, I mean, people who watch NUFC Matters will be sick to death of us talking about it. And, we do get sick to death of talking about it because, the richest club in the country can't spend any money, as we know. PSR, does dictate what Newcastle can and can't spend. Being very clever, being very frugal is all part and parcel of it with Newcastle. They don't want to get caught out so that the Premier League can, make an example of Newcastle. So it is very much cat and mouse. I think listening to Eddie at the weekend, he was very disappointed and he's continued to be disappointed about what happened in June. And that's clearly pointing to the fact that we lost Elliot Anderson and Yankuba Minde. I've watched Minde's first 2 games. I'm still not gutted. I think there's a player in there. I don't think he's the finished article, and I think that he's perfect for Brighton. And that's that's my honest opinion. I don't think he would have been right for Newcastle. I think where he lets himself down is the crossing of his balls. I don't think he's very good at putting the ball in.
Steve.
It's very painful, especially when he does the Kenny Everett thing. So he's not one of these people who can put a first-time ball in, mate. And it's not something that I'm genuinely not concerned about losing him. As for Elliot Anderson, again, Elliot Anderson's another one for the future. And I think that Newcastle had to sell these players to avoid selling a big name. So I was completely for it. I wish them both well, and that's that. The big debate for Newcastle fans this week's been the Mark Gahey transfer. Will he, won't he? Been some interesting twists and turns. There was a lot of noise 2 weeks ago about it. We were all thinking it was more or less done. By the time it came to last weekend, it looked like it couldn't be any further from being done. Looked like it was completely off. Then we see Mark Gahey be given the captaincy for Crystal Palace, much like Bruno had for Newcastle, more or less saying that's him here for the rest of the season now. His performances, well, the 2 performances I've seen him play it looks like his head's battered. It looks like his head's elsewhere. I still think it could probably go through this week. I still think Newcastle could sign Mark Gahey. If not, they seem to have their eyes on 1 or 2 other potential transfers. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Newcastle look at Chelsea's ever-growing list of players for a potential centre half. There is 40-odd players there, and they can't train together. They're having to do 2 separate sessions. It's farcical. But I would say that Newcastle will certainly bring in a centre half, and I still think I'll see a right winger coming in, because it's quite clear that Jacob Murphy and Almiron aren't the future. But like I've said before as well, I wouldn't be disappointed. I wouldn't be disappointed if we keep Almiron and Murphy this season, and we have to make do and mend, I guess, until January. But I think we've still got more than enough, as long as we don't have the same injury list as last season to be up there with the runners and riders, mate.
I'd be amazed if you had the same injury list this time around. Like us, that was insane last time around. I'll tell you one player who I do fancy now. He's actually, funnily enough, he's been linked with the move to Palace, but I think he's actually a good prospect for a signing for Newcastle, and that's Joe Gomez. Now, Joe Gomez, obviously centre back, but also can operate as a right back as well. So he's got a little bit of flexibility in his game. I just think somebody of his standing, it would help Joe Gomez with his shout for an England place. I think he's quality. He's definitely got quality about him. He gets criminally underused at Liverpool, for me. I honestly think that's somebody where he could go, and he wouldn't cost the same sort of money as what you're talking about for Gahey. It's whether he would want to move even further north. He's a South London lad, so I think that maybe the move to Palace probably suits him a little bit more. But I just thought it'd be an interesting one to pop to you, Steve. It's the guy he's won trophies. He's been a decent player. He's not a goal-scoring defender by any means. I don't think he's ever scored for Liverpool. But he's a steady away and a good sort of I don't know, mid-standard kind of Premier League player who I think could sit in there and get a few more games with Newcastle and actually turn into a decent signing.
I mean, I've given up trying to guess and second guess A, what Newcastle are up to, and B, what we're trying to achieve with transfers. I certainly don't hang on every word of anybody on X, because that's just a place to drive you nuts. But you won't go far wrong as a football fan if you live by the philosophy of waiting until you see the player wearing the shirt standing at the side of the pitch with the manager. That's how you avoid getting your head battered. We've been linked with 224 players in this transfer window. Barry Hogan, who watches NUFC Matters, puts them all on a spreadsheet for us.
Thank you, Barry.
So that is mental. 224 players. 224 players. And I just love.
Chelsea.
Yeah, the fact we're not signed any of them is even funnier. But yeah, Gomez, good shout. I mean, Gomez has been mentioned, but certainly, I'm not sure whether Liverpool would be keen on giving us one of their centre halves. I know he's not going to get a game. I still can't believe that Tosin, who was Newcastle's original choice, has moved to Chelsea to go and sit on a bench and potentially not train. I just found that bizarre as well. And we've been linked with one or other too. The big talk about Liverpool potentially signing, Mohamed Kashtavelli, who Newcastle were linked with right at the start of the transfer window. It seems like another lifetime ago. Mohamed Kashtavelli was linked with Newcastle to come in as goalkeeper. Trafford's another one to keep an eye on. Burnley's goalkeeper. People might be saying, well, hold on a minute, Newcastle's got 5-6 goalkeepers. What on earth do we want another one for? But, I still don't know why we bought the Forest goalkeeper, but it doesn't look like it was to play him. So yeah, there's lots of conjecture flying around about Newcastle. Very little fact. Let's just wait and see what happens with the transfer window over the course of the week. We've got to touch on Middlesbrough. Rye's not here, but the bylines I got from most of the media with regards to Middlesbrough and some direct quotes from the manager Michael Carrick was that. In fact, I'll read his quote. I'm not going into next week thinking it's a busier week than usual because we've got so much to cram in before the deadline. Some things might get thrown at us between now and then. You never know. We've got good players, so you can never really know on that side. But we're in a good place as a squad. We're certainly not going into next week anxious, chasing anything, or looking at that deadline as a warning or a beacon or anything like that. Doesn't sound like it's going to be a busy transfer window at Middlesbrough. And he went on to say, I'm really pleased with the way that it's gone this summer. Certainly over time, you build relationships. We learn what each other likes, what we like in players as coaches, and what the team looks like and what it needs. I think we've got a really good chain of understanding. We're always looking to improve. But at this stage, I'm really happy. So despite the mixed start to the season for Middlesbrough, it sounds as if he is, more or less, happy with what he's got.
That sounds to me like the lonely panic if there's offers comes in. Now, that could be the key bit for them as well, Steve, because they have got some terrifically talented young players there. Raf van der Berg is one that I particularly like myself. Again, as an ex-Sunday League defender, I'm part of the Defenders Union. I know goalkeepers have got a union, but I'm part of the Defenders Union without a doubt. I like Van der Berg. I think he's got an outstanding talent about him. It's not that long ago that there was clubs on the continent even looking at him. So he could be one that's maybe on the radar. We know about Riley McGree. We know he's got a bit of talent about him as well. There's 5 or 6 players in that Liverpool squad. Honestly, I haven't even had a drink today, Steve. You can tell. In that Middlesbrough squad, there's about 5 or 6 that you could say that could be potential targets for clubs in the Premier League. Maybe rivals in the Championship as well. Don't rule it out that there might be just some last-minute business going on there. Whether he has to replace it or not, that seems like he's going to be all calm as long as nobody tries to steal his stuff, is what I think Michael Carrick's trying to say there. As far as you are concerned, though, do you not think another striker is also a priority as well, Steve, for Newcastle?
To be honest, I think we could probably get through. We signed Asula. I'm really happy with him. Listen, it's not a star household name, but with Newcastle United, I think keeping a hold of Alexander Isak, which was the most important thing. I think, you and Rye both, waxed lyrical about Isak many times last season, despite being from, Sunderland and Middlesbrough, you could both appreciate quality. Callum Wilson is still a Newcastle United player. because of the injury. I think he's been off teams' radars as a potential mover. This particular window could go in January, of course. So I think Newcastle have set their stall out to have these two strikers. Isak is the number one, Callum is the number 9, but is the number 2 striker. And third place, they needed somebody who was prepared to sit on the bench, but to learn from them in training and be available if injuries struck, which of course, as we know from last season, they can. So I think Asula is your perfect fit. Of course, you need to have 4 strikers. You need to have, you need to have two who can play on a regular basis, maybe together. If you play at 4-4-2 and 2 to come in. So and you need backup in every position. So another one, I'd love it, but I think ultimately for us, it's focus on getting a centre half in, because we know that Lascelles is probably won't be here come next year, and he's got an injury at the moment. Won't be fit, we don't think, until the end of this year, start of next year. Then he's going to leave. We know Trippier's going. We've said, I've talked about this with the lads on NUFC Matters before all of this story broke today. Trippier will leave at some point, and we need replacements. We need replacements in. So centre half is a key. We've got one in Lloyd Kelly. We need another one who can come in as well. Let's hope that we can bring Mark Gahey in. The right wing side of things is where we need to fix next. Murphy and Almiron aren't the future. So I think if they can get a right winger and a centre half in, I think they'll start looking again potentially at another centre forward. Come the next transfer window. But I hate the transfer window. I wish you could make transfers all season round, but unfortunately you can't. We're stuck with these windows, so that means we've got another window in January.
Interesting, actually, that just came up before about the whole transfer window thing. I'm not a fan of the January one at all. I think once you get your squad, and once that transfer window, maybe make it a little bit longer, the summer transfer window, maybe just bring it into perhaps into October. But just make that the only one, because we're all seeing it now where, gone are the days where you're making £50 million signings in January, because the clubs will just try and hold you to ransom. In January, let's say it's, a potential deal between Man United and Newcastle United. Now, if you're desperate for a player at that stage, and everybody knows, hang on a minute, Newcastle haven't got any forwards, they're going to go into the market, they're going to try and buy one. Let's stick another 20 million on the price tag and see what they do. And that's literally, it's completely stifled the whole transfer market in January for me. It's all just loan moves. And to be honest, if you want to make loan moves, maybe just give people a limit, maybe give people a budget to go across the season, open loan moves up right across the board, but get rid of the January transfer market, because I don't think it serves any purpose now. I don't know about you, Steve, but...
No, mate, I'm exactly the same as you. It's just become a nightmare. Even Sky Sports are getting bored of it. I almost feel it was like created for Sky Sports, so that they could have Harry Redknapp looking out of his car window every transfer window.
Don't call him a wheeler dealer.
Don't call him a wheeler dealer. Yeah, it almost had a feeling as if it was so contrived, and now we don't have the excitement anymore. People aren't bothered about it anymore, and they don't make a whole day of it. You know what I mean? People take the day off work to watch the transfer window. It's just not the same anymore. My WhatsApp, because it's match day, is going absolutely bonkers. People giving their opinions about the team selection and about Trippier and about Dubravka, etc. Quite a few people going mental, because unfortunately, when you're the first game on Sky, and of course Newcastle's game is on Sky today. People still haven't got round to the understanding that the second game is the one that everyone talks about, because obviously in the studio they're not sitting at Bournemouth and Newcastle, they're sitting at Liverpool and Brentford. So of course the pre-match talk today is all Arnie Slot and his first game at Anfield, blah 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 blah, and so people in my WhatsApp group are getting absolutely annoyed at the fact of that. Just remember, that's the reason. So looking ahead to next weekend's fixtures, obviously Newcastle play today, and then we've got a midweek cup competition against Nottingham Forest. So Newcastle away in the Carabao Cup, all Premier League tie, away from home once again for Newcastle.
Oh no, you couldn't make it up, could you?
you definitely couldn't. Cardiff against Borough, though, is the Sky Sports game next weekend. So no ride today, so we'll have to do the honours. Cardiff against Borough. big game again for Borough. They're coming, as always in the Championship, they come thick and fast. But Cardiff haven't got off to a great start. They're the strongest team in the division. They're rooted to the bottom, carrying everybody else, Ted.
Yeah, and I didn't see that from Cardiff either. It's been a bit of a surprising start to Championship life, not just the fact that we're at the opposite end of all that. Cardiff, yeah, it's just not happened for them. I think this is the one for Middlesbrough actually starting to turn the season around. I'm saying turn the season around. We're 4 games in at that point. It's not exactly time for them to panic just yet. I can just see that that's a great opportunity to finally get some figures on the board. I can actually see a comfortable win for Middlesbrough with this one as well. The one against Portsmouth, listen, it's always difficult to play against newly promoted teams right at the beginning of the season. And Middlesbrough have had 2 of them. And, for somebody like Portsmouth, getting back into the Championship again, a decent trip away to Middlesbrough, a decent stadium. They're going to fancy their chances. The tails are going to be up. Derby County the week before, it was their first home game back in the Championship for a little while. Their tails were up as well. I think it's just been kind of almost like being bad timing. The fixtures haven't exactly been great for Middlesbrough. This is an opportunity to kind of put that right. And I can see a comfortable win. I don't see anything less than like a 2-0 win for Middlesbrough down at Cardiff.
Okay.
I hate saying that. Saying it.
It's got to be the game really that kickstarts their career, their season.
Yeah.
If they haven't lost anybody in the transfer window, of course, which can be which can also be a big kick in the nads if they lose somebody. Exactly. I agree with you. I think Middlesbrough do well next week. I think they go down there, they give a comprehensive performance. I'm gonna tip Cardiff to score first, but I think a 2-1 win for Middlesbrough and Michael Carrick's boys at Cardiff next week. So yeah, 100%. Now you mentioned promoted teams and you mentioned Borough playing Pompey. You will be listening to the dulcet tones of Playoff Pompey next week. Portsmouth, Sunderland, 3 o'clock kickoff. Good old fashioned 3 o'clock kickoff.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be a problem for you this week, next week, Ted.
These are the ones I don't look forward to, Steve. I was looking forward to the Burnley game because I knew it was going to be a good game. This one, there's a bit of needle between Sunderland and Portsmouth, and that stems back to the rivalry in League One that we had with them for a little while there. We were the 2 biggest clubs in League One by a good distance, to be honest. And yeah, there's always that little bit of needle, not to the extent of like a Coventry City or anybody like that, but this'll be a different kind of game altogether. I think this will be a bit more tackles flying in, a little bit more handbags, that kind of thing between the 2 sides. Listen, Pompey haven't exactly they haven't been a disgrace since they've come up into the Championship again. They look like they can handle themselves. They play, without being insulting to them, they play still in a bit of a League One way. They're a bit more physical. They're a bit more direct in their approach, I suppose. But you've got to be careful with sides like that. And I still fancy us. I do still fancy us. Whether we can actually keep another clean sheet is another thing. I'm going to go for a sneaky 2-1 away victory, and I'll be very, very happy with that if it does happen.
I think Sunderland will keep the run going next week. I think it'll be I think it'll be a bit easier than you think. I think Sunderland's got a bit between their teeth at the moment. I don't think it's a banana skin. I'm going to go for a comprehensive 3-0 win to Sunderland next week. So I'm tipping Sunderland big next week.
You heard it here first.
Definitely. As for Newcastle, well, we don't play until Sunday. Obviously, we have our Carabao Cup game midweek. I think we will ease past Forest. I think there's a lot of unnecessary anxiety and worry on Tyneside about a trip away to Nottingham Forest, but I think we will ease past them and get into the next round, which I think will give us a G for the weekend. And Newcastle United versus Spurs at St James's Park is a game that Newcastle fans relish. We have seen some absolute barnstormers against Spurs, and Spurs do not travel well. They hate coming here. They hate coming to St James's Park.
I hate them going there.
They hate Sunday. They hate it when it's an awkward kickoff time on TV as well. 1:30 on a Sunday. They hate it. They hate it. They hate it. So the Magpies are going to smash the Cockerels next week. It's going to be another 3-0 for Newcastle next week, I think. And I think, that'll have gone easy on Spurs. But yeah, I'm tipping a 3-0 win for Sunderland, a 3-0 win for Newcastle, and a 2-1 win for Borough. I genuinely think it's going to be a good show next weekend.
Yeah.
We'll have a good chat about it. I'm not sure when we'll do it and what time we'll be able to do it, because obviously I'll be at the match on the Sunday. It might have to be slightly later on Sunday. I'll be heading straight home after the game, so maybe we'll be able to do it after the game. But look forward to it. We've reached the end of the show. Enjoy the match today.
Again, I'm gonna
enjoy the match today, Ted, and enjoy the sun. What's the temperature out there in Cyprus today?
It's about 32 degrees today. We're actually due a thunderstorm, which is like the weirdest thing. We never, ever get rain in September or in August here. But we're being forecast a thunderstorm for later. And when you get a thunderstorm here, mate, you know about it. You absolutely know about it. They are proper electrical storms in Cyprus. So, but still, I might just go and have a quick dip in the pool before the match starts. And I'll go and get me bottles of FS out the freezer. And yeah, let's see. I think I do fancy a decent game out of this one today, mate. I do.
Enjoy it. And right, don't forget, mind the gap.
He's going to love that.
Take care, Ted.
See you later, buddy. Ta-da.